thank you for joining us today. We'll be getting started in just a few minutes with informative presentations, followed by a question and answer period. If you're watching this program online, you'll see a chat box on the right side of the screen where you can submit questions. The first time you ask a question, you'll need to enter your first and last name and your email if you have one. Then, answer the easy math question. Answering the math question helps to make sure you are a real person and not a robot. Next, type in your comment and click on the Post button, or press Enter on your keyboard to send. You're welcome to submit questions throughout the presentations. Your questions will be given to our staff to answer during the second part of the program. We're glad you're here. Stay with us.
Do this when you wear and take off your mask. Before putting on your mask, wash your hands with soap and water or use classroom hand sanitizer. Your mask should fit tight around your mouth and nose. If the mask has a metal wire, pinch the wire to fit the top of your nose. It's important to try to not touch your mask while you're wearing it. If you have to adjust it, use the ear loops or ties in the back. If you do touch your mask, wash your hands or use classroom hand sanitizer. When you take off your mask, do not touch the front. Take off your mask using the loops that go around your ears or the straps that go around your head. After you take off your mask, wash your hands or use hand sanitizer right away. Ask your teachers when it's okay to take your mask off, like at recess or when eating. Listen to your teachers to know where you should put your mask when you take it off, to keep it safe when you're not wearing it. And wear a clean mask to school each day. My mask protects you, and your mask protects me. People with COVID-19 may feel sick in lots of different ways. If you don't feel well, it's important to tell your parent or a grown-up. You should not come to school. If you're already at school and you start to feel sick, tell your teacher or the school nurse right away. It's okay to say you're not feeling well, and it's important to tell someone so we all can stay safe. If your grown-up has more questions about COVID-19, visit health.mn.gov.
Easy way to stop the spread of germs is to wash your hands. To properly wash your hands, first, wet your hands with clean water, either warm or cold. And don't forget to turn the water off. 2. Apply soap. 3. Scrub your hands with the soap for at least 20 seconds. If you need a timer, sing the happy birthday song twice. Make sure to clean both the front and back of your hands, your wrists, in between your fingers, and underneath your fingernails. 4. Rinse your hands with clean water. 5. Turn the water off and dry your hands. Make sure to always wash your hands before you eat, after you use the bathroom, after you play outside, after feeding or cleaning up after a pet, and after you cough, sneeze, or blow your nose. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth with unwashed hands, because that's how germs enter our bodies. Remember that washing your hands is the easiest way to prevent germs from spreading. Together, we can help stop the spread of germs and stay healthy. Social distancing is staying at least 6 feet, or the width of a car, away from other people. Social distancing also means that you shouldn't give high fives or hugs to people outside of your home, like friends or teachers. Instead, give a greeting from a distance by showing a friendly smile, waving your hands, or jumping for joy. When you take the bus or leave your home for any reason, do your best to create extra space between yourself and others. This makes it harder for germs to spread. Remember to practice social distancing and to only give high fives or hugs to family members who you live with. Together, we can help stop the spread of germs and stay healthy.
Good morning. I'm Ed Graff, Superintendent of Minneapolis Public Schools. Thanks for taking your Saturday to learn more about what our 6th through 12th grade learners and their families can expect when they head back to the classroom in March and April. First, we expect to see fewer students than would normally be in attendance. About 60% of pre-K families made the same decision to send their children back to school in person. We anticipate that the number of returning students will help us keep the social distancing that is so important for health and safety. I want you to know also that if we have a school where we don't think we can keep students socially distant, we'll review those numbers and consider alternatives. Health and safety is our most important priority. As we found in our elementary schools, everyone will have to learn some new routines in their schools, from how we enter and exit buildings safely, how we eat meals together, but far enough apart to meet health guidelines, and more rules about where and how everyone in our schools move around the buildings. As we also found in our elementary schools, we can do this. Students and staff alike have truly enjoyed being back with their friends, peers, and colleagues. Our secondary teachers will have been in our schools for a week before students return, learning health and safety protocols, preparing classrooms for social distancing, and finding ways to effectively teach while also keeping themselves and their students safe. I want you all to know that by going back to school in person, your child is joining students from school districts across the state and country who've made the same decision. In Minneapolis, we're also fortunate to be experiencing a decline in COVID-19 infection rates. Of course, declining infection rates don't mean the pandemic is over or that our continued cautious approach is any less needed. It simply means that there are ways to educate our students in person while protecting the health of both students and staff. I want to reassure you that we are constantly seeking health and safety guidance from local and state experts in public health. We are also learning from other districts in Minnesota and across the country who already had their students return to in-person learning. We feel confident bringing students back because we've taken the steps that health experts have recommended to prioritize the health and safety of our school communities. There'll be much more information to come in the weeks before students and staff are actually back in our halls and classrooms. I know graduations are on top of that priority list. For now, know that we have supplies of personal protective equipment for all staff and students, and face coverings will be required for everyone. Seating charts will be created and enforced for lunchroom eating to ensure social distancing and also support contact tracing. We have strong requirements around contact tracing and quarantining in order to control infections. We have directional signs in our schools to support social distancing and plastic barriers and face shields to reduce risk. And we're working on addressing complex high school scheduling challenges to ensure that students have access to the courses they need at the middle and high school levels. We will all have to adjust our expectations as we once again recreate the secondary learning experience together. I am confident that our staff, students, and families are up to this historic challenge. Thank you again for joining us today. We look forward to answering your questions right after this short safety video, but most of all, we look forward to seeing students back in the classroom.
It's time for MPS to get its 6th through 12th graders and students in Transition Plus back in the classroom. Families have received a registration form via email or can access that form on the MPS homepage. Please complete the registration form by March 9th, letting MPS know if you'd like to keep your students in distance learning or come back to their schools in person. We're making this decision based on new directives from Governor Walz, declining COVID infection rates, and as well as health experts from MPS's regional support team, who all indicate that MPS may offer in-person learning to our middle and high school students. As you may know, about 60% of our pre-K through 5th grade students' families already chose to have their children return to the classroom. In that time, only a handful of individuals have been identified as being infected with the COVID virus. By strictly enforcing our response protocol, which is closely monitored by health experts at the Minneapolis Health Department, we have prevented further spread in our schools, just as we have since the beginning of the pandemic in our essential childcare. Building on this success, MPS continues to plan to offer in-person learning to our students in grades 6 through 12 and Transition Plus. On March 22nd, high school students who receive Federal Setting 3 special education services are welcome to return to our classrooms, as will be some students in Transition Plus, Harrison, and Riverbend. On April 12th, all high school students are welcome to participate in in-person learning, as well as middle school students receiving Federal Setting 3 special education services and remaining students at Transition Plus, Riverbend, and Metro programs. Finally, on April 19th, we'll open our doors to all students in grades 6 through 8 who are interested in returning to the classroom. Depending on when students are back in the classroom, they will have a week off before going back to schools to give staff and educators time and the opportunity to prepare for students' return. Students returning March 22nd will have the week of March 15th through 19th off. Students returning on April 12th or April 19th will have the week of March 29th through April 2nd off. And all staff and students are off for spring break the week of April 5th through 9th. All of what MPS has done to prioritize health and safety in our elementary schools is also being done in our secondary schools, with some additional considerations. You can see FAQs and videos about much of the health and safety measures we've taken and are taking in our schools and classrooms at b2s.mpls.k12.mn.us. For example, middle and high school staff and students will be asked to check themselves or have a family member's assistance to check themselves for symptoms before they come to school each day. If anyone has any of the following symptoms, they should stay home and consider calling their health provider. A fever of 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, difficulty or a hard time breathing, new cough or a cough that gets worse, or new loss of taste or smell. You can learn more about self-screening at b2s.mpls.k12.mn.us. Prevention is key, and MPS makes hand washing and disinfecting part of students' daily routines, while requiring face coverings in all its schools. Students and staff in grades 6 through 12 and in Transition Plus will be required to wear face coverings at all times, unless eating a meal or medically unable to do so. It's worth noting that middle schools and high schools are different from elementary schools in that students move from room to room for their classes. MPS operations staff will be working with schools to set up social distance protocols and clear signage for classroom passing, school exits and entrances, restrooms, stairwells, and other common spaces. That includes classroom setup, where we'll do everything we can to keep students at least 3 feet apart and 6 feet from staff. Additionally, all MPS air filters have been changed to the highest filtration rate possible to reduce transmission of COVID particles. Where possible, MERV 1314 filters and high-efficiency particulate air filters have been placed in classroom as needed. To bring in fresh outside air, ventilation systems will run for 2 hours before school and will stay on for 2 hours after school is closed. Another difference in the way we'll be handling secondary versus elementary is through documenting seating in our lunchrooms. Seating charts will be required and enforced, supporting efforts to contact trace when that becomes necessary. If and when a COVID case is identified, the Minneapolis Health Department and the Minnesota Department of Health have confidential decision-making authority on how each case should be handled. A minimum 10-day isolation is required for a confirmed positive case. People in contact with that person will have to quarantine from 14 days from the last exposure. Our state health authorities are also recommending that staff and students get regular COVID testing. There are some special considerations at the high school level that high school and district staff are still considering. Class scheduling at high schools can get very complex, as students participate in more electives and require a certain number of credits, both for graduation and for post-secondary education. Some classes may only have one person with the licensing, training, or credentials to teach that class. If that person is working from home, in-person students may find themselves online, even when they're going to school in person. Both school and district staff will combine resources to think outside the box to ensure that students get the credits they need and the academic support they deserve. Credit recovery programs will continue at all high schools for just that purpose, as is Spring Break Academy, which focuses on credit recovery for 12th graders. Graduation, of course, is at the top of the priority list when figuring out the rest of our school year. The class of 2020 graduated virtually. MPS is currently making a virtual plan and an in-person plan, hoping that as we get closer to graduation, the best way forward will be clear. Prom is another event that students look forward to attending. The possibility of a prom is almost completely dependent on guidance from health experts and continuing decline of infection rates. Right now, state health experts recommend that events, whether indoors or outdoors, must be limited to ensure that social distancing of 6 feet can be maintained between members of different households at all times. Capacity must be further limited to the lesser of 25% capacity or 250 people total. Athletics will continue to be handled as they are now, with no spectators at events. We will, however, continue to live stream winter sporting events. While high school students will largely either use Metro Transit to get to and from school or provide their own transportation, middle school bus transportation gets a little trickier. The requirement to space students farther apart on buses for health and safety reasons means more buses are required, but health considerations mean even fewer dryers are available. Students receiving special education services will continue to have special education transportation per their IEP. MPS is doing everything it can to maximize busing resources, including offering mileage reimbursement to families currently using busing who can transport their students themselves. You can learn more about that on our website at transportation.mpls.k12.mn.us. Even with all these health and safety protocols in place, MPS can't promise that a student or staff member won't come to school with COVID. What we're trying to prevent is having anyone else get sick from that individual. Each case is evaluated independently and carefully. A classroom may be quarantined, students from a bus, a grade level, a school, or the entire district. Health and safety will always be prioritized. Each MPS family must decide what works best for their child and for their family, in-person learning at their school or distance learning. We need you to share your decision with us by Tuesday, March 9th. As soon as MPS has a realistic idea of how many secondary students will be returning, we can better review our staffing and space needs and make adjustments accordingly. Please know you are not locked into a decision. If you change your mind, you can work with your school to move from one learning format to another, but transitioning to in-person learning from distance learning can take at least 2 weeks. You will always be able to find more information about health and safety and our 5-phase plans by going to d2s.mpls.k12.mn.us. You can also go to the lower section of our homepage and click on MPS COVID-19 Status Update to learn about all the ways MPS is preparing and to see a list of schools who learned an individual in their school tested positive for COVID-19. MPS will be in constant touch with the Minnesota health authorities about moving forward with the plan to return secondary students to in-person learning. Any significant changes in infection rates will be reviewed and evaluated. If the return of our elementary students is any indication, returning our secondary students to their schools can be done successfully, happily, and safely. We look forward to receiving your registration form by March 9th. Thank you for choosing Minneapolis Public Schools.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. We'll be getting started in just a few minutes with informative presentations, followed by a question and answer period. If you're watching this program online, you'll see a chat box on the right side of the screen where you can submit questions. The first time you ask a question, you'll need to enter your first and last name and your email if you have one. Then, answer the easy math question. Answering the math question helps to make sure you are a real person and not a robot. Next, type in your comment and click on the Post button, or press Enter on your keyboard to send. You're welcome to submit questions throughout the presentations. Your questions will be given to our staff to answer during the second part of the program. We're glad you're here. Stay with us.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ed Graff, the Superintendent of Minneapolis Public Schools, and thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you had a chance to watch our pre-recorded program about all the things we're doing to ensure our secondary students and staff are safe when we return to our buildings in the coming weeks. We're so looking forward to answering your questions about in-person learning, and so I'd like to get us started this morning by introducing our moderator for the question and answer segment of our program. It's Dr. Brian Zambrino, who's one of our elementary school associate superintendents. So I'll turn it over to you this morning, Brian.
Thank you, Superintendent Graff. And yes, we're excited to be here this morning to answer your questions about in-person learning. Please know that we will try to balance questions by school and student demographics. We will be focused on answering questions from families about our safety practices and other topics related to in-person learning for students in grades 6 through 12. Before we begin with questions, I'd like to go over some logistical things. First, you can submit your questions using the EduVision chat function where you are watching the program online. Just look in the lower right corner of the web page to post questions. We will also be tracking questions submitted through Facebook Live and answering them here. You are welcome to ask multiple questions throughout the presentation. Your questions will be given to our staff to answer. You can ask your questions in English or your preferred language And I want to thank our interpreters who are live translating this event. Please keep in mind that there are many people asking questions, so it might take a while for your question to get asked. And if for any reason we're unable to answer your question today, please ask your school principal or go online to b2s.mpls.k12.mn.us to see our online question and answer. Now let's introduce our panelists. First is Rochelle Cox, Associate Superintendent of Special Education.
Good morning, everyone.
Great to see you this morning, Rochelle. And Karen DeVette, our Senior Operating Officer.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Of course, we need to be thinking about our academics. So we have Dr. Amy Fearing, our Interim Senior Academic Officer.
Morning, everyone.
And Dr. Sean Harris-Berry, Associate Superintendent of High Schools.
Good morning, MPS families.
Great to see you. And Justin Hennis, of course, supporting us in many ways with all this technology, our Senior Information Officer.
Good morning, everyone.
Also, Jason Matlock, who is our Director of Emergency Management, Safety, and Security.
Good morning, everyone.
Always a good conversation to bring in our numbers. So we got our numbers guy, Eric Moore, our Senior Accountability, Research, and Equity Officer.
Good morning, everyone, and I hope you get a chance to get outside. It's gorgeous outside, so good to see everyone, and then enjoy the day.
Absolutely, some wonderful weather coming our way. Taking over the role of MC this time from my esteemed colleague, LaShawn Ray, who's done that in the past. He's our Associate Superintendent of Middle Schools.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
Next, Amber Spaniel, who's our Director of Nursing Services.
Good morning, everyone.
And Maggie Sullivan, our Senior Human Resources Officer.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
And last, but certainly not least, is Ronald Wagner, Associate Superintendent of Elementary Schools.
Good morning on this beautiful Saturday. Thank you, Dr. Zambrino.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. Now let's get started with our questions. Eric Moore, I did mention you being our numbers guy, so I'm going to throw the first question to you. How are the trends looking so far in terms of number of students coming back into schools, and how real are the CAP problems?
So secondary, let's start with secondary. I mean, obviously the enrollment trends. As of now, we've had about 50% of our families that have indicated a choice between in-person and distance learning. Of that 50%, about 54% are indicating that they'd like to come back in person. 45% are going to continue distance. And that range varies by middle school, high school, but the range is 40% all the way up to 86% in a different school community. So there's a nice wide range. By race, what we're seeing is, I'll just read the numbers here, 46% of African-American families are saying they'd like to come back in person, 49% of American Indian, 32% of Asian, 49% of our Hispanic, and 66% of our white families are indicating that they'd like to come back in person. And again, this is roughly what about half of our families responding. The CAP issue is really interesting. We look at those numbers daily, and this is at the elementary level, but it will give you an indication of somewhat what to expect at the middle school and high school level. But as of now, at the elementary levels, we're looking at 2 classrooms that have over 40 students. So it ends up being less than 1%. It's actually 0.6% of classrooms that are over 40. Classrooms that are 31% or over, you look at 0.2%. There's 11% roughly of school classroom distance learning classrooms that are over 31. So you have 11% of school distance learning at 31 or over. In-person classroom, there's 1 classroom, so that's 0.2%, and then distance learning classrooms over 40 ends up being 0.6%. So the numbers are fairly small when you look at being capped over. And just to share, that's something we look at daily. and those numbers have actually declined because when we did our initial runs and we saw that we had some classes that were larger, we reached out to our associate superintendents. Associate superintendents reached out to principals and we problem solved. And so that's why we look at the data on a daily basis, and we'll continue to work with you. And we want to make sure that the both in-person experience and distance learning experience is a positive one for all people. And so we do look at class sizes very diligently.
Thank you. Associate Ray, I'm going to ask you the next question. I have heard that fifth graders have been doing distance learning in the classroom. Is that the plan for sixth graders if they return to class? If so, what is the value add to sending them back to school?
Associate Zambrino, thanks for the question. It's an interesting question. Students should have as close to a regular learning experience as possible, classroom learning experience, and shouldn't have a distance learning experience in the classroom or the same experience they had while at home. It is not our expectation that students would have the same learning experience in person as they did at home. If you have further questions or concern, you should reach out to your building principal. So we want kids to, be engaging with teachers and in small groups and interacting and not having a distance learning experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Associate Cox, I know a lot of people are wondering with the spring holiday coming up or the spring break, will kids be required to quarantine after returning from a spring break trip?
Thanks, Dr. Zambrino. Both the Minnesota Department of Health and the Centers for Disease Control are strongly discouraging travel over spring break. MPS will not be monitoring our students and family travel, but expect that our families will be using the guidance provided by both the CDC and DH for their travel plans. If they have any questions, our health services staff are always available to help and consult with any needs they might have upon their return.
Thank you. Here's an academic question. How will teachers manage students remotely while they are teaching students in the classroom? Dr. Fearing?
Good morning, everyone. So as we start looking forward to secondary grades 6-12, there will be some differences in how we had to approach elementary. For grade 6-12, the teachers need specific licensure and certifications. And so different than elementary, many of our teachers will probably be asked to teach simultaneously, meaning if the teacher is the only teacher in the building that can teach that course for the students, they will have to teach it and the students will have to, the students distance learning will have to be able to tune into the classroom as the teacher is teaching in person. However, we are exploring technology that will assist the teacher in being able to make the environment for the students who are in distance learning still feel part of the classroom, still be able to participate, engage with their peers. And so we have some ongoing projects with that. And then of course, we'll have professional development available to our teachers for that.
Thank you. Dr. Harris-Berry, I know you've been having a lot of conversations with your principals about schedules. Will students have 6 classes every day, or will block scheduling be used?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we've had a lot of conversations around scheduling. The determination of high schools continuing with a block schedule or changing to a 6-period day has not been yet determined. There are many complexities, Associate Zambrino, associated with high school schedules that schools need to take into consideration. But families and students need to be assured that every high school student will remain enrolled in their current classes. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Superintendent Graff, can you share the percentage of teachers and staff by school who have been or will be vaccinated by the time in-person learning resumes?
Yeah, this has been an ongoing conversation around the state, and I'm sure you're all aware the governor has, again, pushed out more opportunities for vaccines for educators. And so we are working very closely with the Minnesota Department of Education, Department of Health to provide those opportunities to our staff. Know that the information that we have now is really survey-based. So we've been surveying our employees, asking where they are with their vaccines. And based on the number of individuals who've responded, we have over 80% of those who've completed the survey saying they've either had their first dose or they've received both doses. We still have a number who are scheduling their appointment or working to schedule their appointment, or they have an appointment, but they've yet to receive the vaccine. So that information, again, is not something that we have all of our employees sharing with us, but we are conducting ongoing surveys, pushing out information about the vaccine opportunities, the vaccine opportunities, as well as the requesting that if they do have information about receiving a vaccine, that they share it with us. So we aren't able to share school by school because that's information that is an individual's right to share. But we're optimistic that the vaccines are being provided in a broader sense across the state of Minnesota, and just encouraging all of our employees to register in all the different locations possible at this time.
Thank you. If you are just joining us, please know that your question may have already been asked. As a reminder, this program is being recorded and will be available for playback on Sunday afternoon. Associate Ray, I see a question related to middle school here. Will middle school kids be in the same room all day other than PE and band? Will they just be continuing Google Meets with each class time as usual, but have headphones or earbuds on in their class as they start the day?
Associate Zambrino, thanks for the great question. No, middle school students will be transitioning between classes, or they won't be in one class all day. For example, if they have math first period for 50 minutes or however long, after that time, the bell will ring and students will get up and move around to different classrooms. And that's both in middle and high school. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent, the next question I'll direct to you. It's a little bit longer, so I'll try to give time for our translations. So all the scientific evidence shows kids of all ages can safely return to school. Everyone except a few teachers' unions say that kids are suffering by not being in school. All frontline workers are working except teachers. Is it not only illogical that all Minneapolis public schools are not open now, but unconscionable to keep them out? I don't buy that the district needs more time to plan. Almost all the world and most of the country is back in school safely. Everyone knows the delay is from Minneapolis Teachers Union. Why aren't all Minneapolis schools open now?
This is a question we've been, or a situation we've been wrestling with the whole year in terms of when we're opening our schools for students for in-person learning. And I'll go back to where we started the school year, and we made a very conscientious effort to balance our health and safety with the academics, and have erred on the side of caution for many months now. You know, it's almost a year since we've been outside of in-person learning. And I think if you take a look at the approach we've taken, we've been very thoughtful and deliberate about how we've come back into school. Certainly the governor's announcement in December, you know, opening up the opportunities at the elementary level, reducing some of those guidelines and restrictions allowed us to move much more rapidly at the elementary level. As you've heard a little bit this morning, and you'll probably hear more through these questions and answers, the secondary level is quite complex. And so we have to, you know, first of all, make sure that we understand where we are with our case data and what that looks like for the infection rates across the city and the state of Minneapolis. Take a look at what our employee needs are, both their certification, what they have available in terms of where they can be, what they can be teaching, and then looking at the interest from families. And a lot of our families are in the process right now of trying to make a decision about whether they want in-person or to remain in distance learning. And I know that that's very difficult sometimes without all the information. And so we're really trying to provide those opportunities for families to get a better sense of what they need. But I would just say that the rate at which we're moving forward with our secondary is aligned to what we've been talking about. We've said all along that we'll look for transition dates that make sense. And when we're talking about our high school students and the idea of credits and what they need in order to stay on track for graduation, the quarter break is a natural transition for that. as well as just making sure that we are prioritizing the health and safety, the well-being, and making sure that we're ready to make that transition and minimize as many disruptions as possible. We recognize that this is going to be a disruptive transition for families, whether they stay in distance learning or move to in-person. And so we're just trying to mitigate that and minimize the impact of those disruptions going forward. But I do believe we're on track at the right time to make this move into secondary in-person learning.
Thank you, Superintendent. I think this next question kind of builds on what you were just speaking to. What happened to the plans for a hybrid model to transition into in-person? The original plan had 5 to 6 phases. We're currently on phase 2 and jumping to the very last one. This seems very irresponsible and unsafe considering the majority of educators will not be vaccinated. And school-aged children will likely be among the last people to get the vaccine.
So again, we've looked at this phases to safe learning over the course of many months, taking feedback not only from our employees in the community, but also taking lessons from other districts that have been operating through this pandemic as well, both locally and nationally. And again, I think that where we are with the idea of the vaccine being more readily available to our employees, I shared a little bit of the data that we have right now about employees who've been able to access the vaccine, and so feel very confident about how that is progressing. Also looking at where we are with our phases to safe learning. We are having our elementary students in-person learning 5 days a week, and we're continuing to see positive management and support of our learning experience for our students and our staff in those cases. We have started with phase 3 for our secondary students. So we do have some targeted services that are going to be provided across our 6th through 12th grades beginning next week. And so excited to be operationalizing that part of it. And then really as we move to it fully in person, that is the direction that the governor has asked us to move toward. And so I think we are following those phases and we're just doing it in a very deliberate, thoughtful manner. And again, wanting to make sure that we minimize as much disruption as possible, knowing that there will be disruption to any changes that we make, but doing it with a student and a staff focus in mind.
Thank you, Superintendent. Very complex transitions, but it sounds like there's some great thinking going on. Dr. Berry, this next one would really be relevant to high school students. Will students be allowed to leave and return to campus during lunch?
Dr. Zambrino, I know this is a really important question that our high school students are wanting the answers for. Each high school will determine their policy regarding open lunch. The capacity of a school's lunchroom will be a major factor in determining if students will be allowed to leave during lunchtime. So there's not a one size fit all in regarding to open lunch.
Thank you. Dr. Fearing, can you please speak to what the experience will be for those that choose to remain in distance learning?
Yeah, so for the grade 6-12, we really do believe that many of the teachers will embrace the simultaneous teaching so that the teacher in the classroom will be streaming out to those who are in distance learning. So the type of engagement will be more with the teacher student versus the way it may have been now in distance learning. For teachers and students who are solely distance learning, it'll probably continue as the school has set up its system and its curriculum and its expectations for instruction. But I do anticipate for students grade 6-12, there'll be a lot more tuning in, doing virtual live sessions with their teachers and their classmates, and a lot more interaction by the Google Meet or the computer.
Thank you. Next, we have a question related to our facilities. So I'll ask Senior Officer DeVette to respond to this. What will the room sizes look like, and will there be 6 feet of distance?
Thank you, Dr. Zabrino, for that question. Currently, the guidance from the Minnesota Department of Health and the Minnesota Department of Education is to maintain 6 feet of distance for adults and then 3 to 6 feet of distance between students. So we're currently setting our classrooms for that minimum of 3 feet, but where we can within classrooms maintain 6 feet, we will certainly work to do so. So thanks for that question.
Thank you. Amber Spaniel, the next one is a health-related question. Can a student who has symptoms like a mild fever go to school in person?
Thank you for that question. I think this is such a good reminder. So if anyone has any symptoms of illness, they are not to come to school or work. As we all know, we're in different times. And so some mild symptoms that perhaps like a runny nose, previously students would come to school, but right now we really ask that you do not come on site, do not come to school, monitor your symptoms, connect with your school health office. We are here to help walk through the symptoms, collaborate with you on next steps, because again, some of those mild symptoms are symptoms of COVID and may need further investigation. So thank you for your partnership on that. It's really, really important. And is a huge preventative strategy for us to keep schools open.
Thank you. Dr. Fearing, will students in distance learning have school during the transition days when the teachers are preparing for students to come back to in-person?
No, and thank you for the opportunity to clarify this. So all students 612 will not have school starting March 29th and then going through April 2nd. The teachers' transition days are March 29th through April 1st, and teachers will be working on their grading on Friday, April 2nd, but students will not be in school. I do want to use this opportunity to say that we will be making that week into a college and career preparation week, and we will have live and anytime activities on our Minneapolis website. So we would love to have all of your students log into our Minneapolis website, and they'll be able to see sessions that they can engage in live, panelists, they can do virtual college tours, work on their FAFSA, college scholarships with some help. There'll also be some anytime activities that they'll be able to engage in too to help them with college and career preparation. So again, for grades 6-12, during that transition week, March 29th through April 1st, please look on our Minneapolis website. And so that your students can still be engaged in a lot of the activities and learning that we would normally be doing in person at this time of the year.
Thank you. That's some helpful information. So while no school, lots of great opportunities still for our students. Senior Officer Sullivan, students are concerned that teachers are being forced to go back. Students feel pressure that their going back is putting teachers' jobs in jeopardy. Can you address this? Is this a rumor or reality?
Well, we know our students care and their families care a great deal for our teachers and staff. A student's or family's decision to move to in-person learning or to remain in distance learning does not put a teacher's job in jeopardy. In fact, throughout the entire pandemic, MPS has not laid off any teachers or any other district employees, but deeply appreciate our students looking out for our teachers.
Thanks, me too. Senior Officer Moore, how will MPS prioritize social emotional learning and mental health care for our middle and high school students?
Thank you, Brian. It's a really important question, and I've been reflecting a lot about social emotional learning and mental health and our current historical context. Not to belabor the point, but it wasn't too long ago when the concepts of social emotional learning and mental health were somewhat taboo, and that people are having to internalize on their own, especially our students, some of the challenges that they face that are very normal and real. So I'm proud to work in a district that prioritizes mental health and social emotional learning. And the first thing we do is that we want to make sure that students have the opportunity to share what they're feeling. And student voice is so critical. We know that students will be challenged to learn if they're not able to express what's on their mind and what they're feeling. Before we attempt to provide content, we have to acknowledge the whole being of who students are. So the first thing we do is every morning we have what we call morning meeting. that's an opportunity for students to share what's on their mind, and just to engage as human beings. I mean, I think that's the fundamental purpose of what we should be doing. At the end of each day, we also have what we call closing circle. We check in with our students, making sure that they're ready for what they may encounter at the end of the day. And then you just always just end with community. Traditionally, we have mental health services provided. We have social workers who are invaluable. We have guidance counselors. We also contract out school-based mental health providers. I'm proud to say that every school has contracted a school-based mental health provider. So we have the opportunity for students to get the one-on-one support that they need. And proud to say also that we do it with an equity lens. So we provide the mental health support, social emotional learning. We give students what they need, when they need it. And so we're very flexible on making sure that we're addressing the needs of our students when they arise. I do want to acknowledge as well that that we are entering a really challenging space right now. We've been through a lot already, obviously with the murder of Mr. George Floyd, the mental health issues associated with being in a pandemic. We're entering next week the Derek Chauvin trial. And so we're very clear on the mental stressors that'll place and emotional stressors that'll place on the adults in the system, as well as our families and our students. So we have resources already identified for that. From, again, the morning meeting structure will provide an opportunity for our students to share what they're feeling. We also are partnering with Legal Rights Center so that there's opportunities for students and families to join citywide community gatherings. We also have access to materials for the classrooms for our teachers as they want to continue with discussions. We also are providing professional development for our teachers, again, to talk about issues that may come up, and just take a look at these issues in the historical context, take a look at these issues in the context of race, power, et cetera. So it's a priority, and we have it. We're going to do in the mornings. We'll do our morning meetings. We'll close out our conversations, and then we also expect to have those resources for students when they need it. So it's indeed a priority, and proud to be part of a district that prioritizes social emotional learning and mental health. And then beyond even this year, what we can look forward to next year is we have done some additional investments in mental health and social emotional learning. So this is who we are, and proud to say that.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah. And thank you to everyone who's joining us this morning. If you just signed in, please know that your question may have already been asked. As a reminder, the program is being recorded and will be available for playback on Sunday afternoon. All right, I have another facilities question. So Senior Officer DeVette, this parent says, I'm looking specifically, possibly a student, hopefully there's students listening, so maybe I made an assumption there, but I'm looking specifically at Edison High School, but what has been done to improve airflow in the classrooms? Do the windows open?
So thank you again for the facilities question. And MPS has taken great strides to maintain and improve all of our ventilation systems throughout the district and put additional mitigations, if you would, in place during COVID as recommended by the Minnesota Department of Health and the Association of Heating and Cooling Refrigerators. So all of our air filters throughout the district in our air handling systems have been changed to work at the highest filtration rate possible. And we've also added high efficiency particulate filtration units, portable units in our classrooms where we cannot put the MERV filtration rate at that highest level is number 14. We do actually, I recognize the guidance suggests that we keep windows open, but our air handling systems are all balanced and tested and designed to operate with our windows closed. So if windows are opened, then the circulation throughout the building is not going to work as designed. So we are asking to the extent possible that we keep our windows closed.
Thank you. All right, next question. Are kids going to move from classroom to classroom and teacher to teacher? There is no value to them sitting in one room all day on their computers. dialing into different teachers. Please explain how a day will look for middle schoolers. Associate Ray?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Associate Zambrino. And this one's came up previously, so I know it's on people's minds. Students will change classrooms, just like pre-pandemic when students were in person, or students and staff were in person. Students will be in class, bell will ring, they'll get up, move around, socialize a little bit, and go to their next class. They'll have their core subjects during the week, as well as they'll have specialists, advisory. Principals have even asked about, getting kids outside a little bit. So it'll look as close to pre-pandemic as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Associate Ray. Associate Cox, is social distancing really important? If so, how do you expect the students to stay 3 feet apart? And shouldn't it really be 6 feet of distance since for COVID, high schoolers are like adults?
Yes, social distancing will be an important mitigation strategy that we'll have in our toolbox at the secondary level. For our students, MDH, or Minnesota Department of Health, and the Minnesota Department of Education require 3 feet and recommend 6 feet. We'll be setting up our classrooms to making sure that the classroom seating is 3 feet apart, and this will be a good reminder for students to be able to maintain that 3 feet. We'll be using transition times, such as in the hallway. We'll be using efficient and quick strategies to get the students moving through those areas and back into the classrooms where the physical environment will be set up to remind them about that 3 feet distancing.
Thank you. Director Spaniel, will extra masks be available for students? And if needed, could a person donate masks or funds to purchase masks for students or staff?
Yes, there will be extra face coverings or masks available at all the buildings. And again, appreciate the partnership. So if you are looking at something like that, I would recommend you talk to your school leadership and team there to see what options there are for possible donations.
Okay, thank you. Senior Officer Sullivan, during distance learning, students had a flexible learning day. How is that day going to look once teachers return to the building in person?
Yes, for context, the flexible learning day came from the governor's orders, which requires us to provide an extra 30 minutes of preparation time for teachers who are supporting distance learning, and we'll continue to follow those orders. We are looking at the flexible learning day as we finalize our staffing and scheduling. As we learn more and get more data about which students are opting into in-person learning, we'll be able to finalize that schedule at the secondary level and get more information out to our families, including about what that day will look like.
Thank you. All right, our next question, how are you partnering with Metro Transit to ensure safety on trains and buses, both from a social distancing perspective and general safety? Will there be additional buses in place for certain routes, like during a typical school year, or is there another plan in place? Senior Officer DeVette.
Thank you, Dr. Zabrino. Yes, we are working closely with Metro Transit to start up our high school transportation when our students return on April 12th. So it is their practice to add additional buses to the to and from school time periods when school is in session. So they're aware of our plans to bring students back, and we are working together to ensure we have capacity for our high school students when they return to classes. As it relates to safety on the bus or at the bus stop, we'll continue to work with Metro Transit on our safety practices and our guidelines for our students as they get their go-to cards. We're also developing some guidance for our schools to talk with students about that Metro Transit experience, particularly during this time, during the pandemic and differing operations. And so there'll be resources available to our schools and our students to talk about bus stop safety and, you know, that Metro Transit experience.
Thank you. I know the safety of our students is our highest priority. Dr. Fearing, what will physical education look like? How is gym class going to work? And how are you going to put all the kids in the little classrooms?
So for grade 6-12, per the Minnesota Department of Health guidance, the students in physical education classes can be meeting in their physical education classes. They don't need to remain in a small, the small regular instructional classes. However, everyone does need to be wearing masks unless they have a, a medical condition or exemption. As the weather gets nice, I'm sure many teachers would rather just take their students outside in outdoor spaces. And then also just to think about how the class will be structured, we're going to focus a little bit more on individual type sports. So it's not teams, there isn't a physical contact. So it might mean that our physical education teachers will adjust some of the activities that they have for students just to allow for that social distancing. But we will be providing guidance to our building administrators and our physical education and our health teachers in regards to how to use the space, what are the expectations, the health and safety guidelines, and then if they do use equipment, how to sanitize the equipment in between classes. If your student has physical education equipment that was sent home when they were distance learners and they would like to bring it back, that would be great because we'll be able to sanitize it. And then students will be able to have their individual equipment that they will use because they should not be sharing any of the equipment during the class time.
Thank you. I know Senior Officer Moore spoke to our efforts to support our kids with their social emotional well-being. But Director Matlock, there's a question I think is relevant for you. What is staff expected to do when a physical fight breaks out?
Well, thank you. And I'm going to echo back to Senior Officer Moore because the most important thing that our staff can do is build relationships with our students to prevent something like this. So I want to start there and make sure that everyone's remembering that that's the first responsibility of all of our staff, is to make sure that we're doing things to prevent these kind of incidents from occurring. If it does happen, then we would follow our guidance that has been laid out previously. And because of the fact that our students' well-being is the most important thing to us, we would ask them to continue on with the same guidance that they had previous to this. Everything would be going as they would have in the past, using the proper de-escalation techniques that we teach. And then if physical intervention is necessary, using those strategies that we're again taught through our partnership with the Crisis Prevention Institute.
Thank you. Associate Cox, what is the threshold of positive cases if cases rise during return to lead to a return to distance learning? And would that be per school?
Yeah, so let's start at the school level. If a entire school had a symptomatic rate of about 5% for both staff and students, we would look at closing that school for a short period of time to make sure that we get through some infection and exposure periods. Then we would be able to reopen per our guidance from the Minnesota Department of Health and through their consultation. As far as closing down the entire district, that would be at the discretion of the superintendent and his planning team. And also the governor could also do that across the state of Minnesota.
Thank you. Associate Ray, can you explain why middle school is returning last on April 20th versus the rest of the grades?
Yeah, absolutely, Associate Sambrino. I think the question could have read last but not least. I had to add that in there. Seriously, great question. The main reason is as we look at students registering, and there's time needed between registration and to make sure that there's transportation for middle schoolers. For example, high schoolers, they get a go-to card and they can catch the city bus. Middle schoolers, the operations team, senior leader, the vet, they need time to engage and put all the routes together to be able to have students have a bus ride to school. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Spaniel, what is the protocol if one or more of the kids or teachers get COVID?
So if MPS is notified of a positive COVID-19 case, it will either come directly from that staff member or the family or from our health department. So once we know that, we do look at each case on an individual basis. So just a quick overview is first looking if that person was on site during their infectious period, because we want to know if there's any exposure to Minneapolis Health Department. So we work with them to figure out next steps. So looking at close contacts, making sure anybody who had that increased exposure gets the information they need on quarantine, give overall health support and information.
We're maybe having some connectivity issues there.
Also are making sure that our families and staff know whenever there is a case. So just know, when did it cut out? Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're good. Associate Cox, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think just the last part that Amber was saying is that we make sure that all of our families and staff will know if there is a case in their building, and they'll be notified through a letter and an email.
Thanks so much. All right, Dr. Harrisberry, this is from a parent wondering, I'm currently able to work from home. If that changes during the remaining school year, will my child be able to change to in-person learning?
Thank you for the question. Yes, you can change your mind at any time. Families need to understand, however, that moving from in-person to distant learning can happen immediately. However, moving from distant learning to in-person after the registration period can take up to 2 weeks.
Okay, so families can change, but if they're moving one direction, it can take up to 2 weeks is what I hear you saying.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Superintendent Graff, grades 4 and 5 returned 2 weeks after grades K-3. Why does it take 2 more months to phase in the next wave of grades?
So there are a couple of things that we looked at. The first thing is that the requirements, the health and safety guidelines for elementary were modified significantly and actually allowed us to move very quickly in terms of bringing those students back. The one requirement is that we had to put 2 weeks between grade bands. Since we operationalized that, the governor came out and again adjusted what those guidelines were slightly for secondary. Although they were not as open as elementary, it did allow us some opportunity to adjust our social distancing, but we still had the requirement of understanding who wanted to be in person, who wanted to remain in distance learning. We still have the requirement of developing all of our transportation schedules and routing. We have the requirements to put all of our teachers in their licensed positions. So making sure that our schedules are developed, and then of course do our planning with our teachers. So the timing of it again may feel like it's very delayed, but it actually is moving along, and the cadence or the sequence that one would expect to operationalize a district our size with the complexities that we have at the secondary school.
Thank you, Superintendent. And thank you once again, everyone, for tuning in this morning. If you're just joining us, please know that your question may have already been asked. And as a reminder, this program is being recorded and will be available for playback on Sunday afternoon. Director Matlock, this is a serious question from a family member. I'm worried about the increase in gun violence. What are you going to do to ensure that our kids are safe when they get off the city bus and when waiting at the bus stop to get on the city bus to go back home?
Thank you. So starting with the fact that we are all worried about any increase in violence in our city. So I appreciate the question. For that, we do partner with our outside partners, such as the city's Office of Violence Prevention. As Senior Leader DeVette spoke, we partner with Metro Transit around how they monitor and their stops and their buses. And we are also have begun to address our walk zones and the size of those. And we are also looking to partner with outside agencies around how we can better support those city bus stops in those areas out in the community. But again, it's all about our partnerships to do the best we can to make sure that we are safe. So we also encourage all of the community to do what they can as well to help address these kind of things that are happening.
Thank you. Associate Cox, how will school staff enforce proper mask wearing such that it is not below the nose or mouth? What is the plan to address improper mask wearing, and what are the defined consequences of non-compliance? I have asked our high school principal through email and not received a response.
Yeah, so as we're thinking about mask wearing, one of the things as we've seen other grade levels come in is that our students are used to this cultural norm now of having to wear a mask when we're around other people. So we haven't seen it being a huge problem at the elementary schools. So we're anticipating that our high school students are going to understand that this is one of our mitigation strategies, and that if we want to be in person, this is what we're going to have to do to keep each other safe. We'll be doing gentle reminders. We'll be, as students are thinking about entering, we'll be teaching all of the health and safety protocols. So reminders through there. For me, it's always understanding the function of why, right? And what is behind the improper use of mask wearing. So we're making sure that our support staff, our related staff, our deans, our associate educators, our special education assistants, as well as our school social workers and other support staff are really taking the time to talk to students about the why, so that we can figure out and help them through that as we're moving forward. So we'll be approaching it with a level of understanding that this is for the best of our school community, and helping students figure out how we can help them be mask wearers.
Thank you, Associate Cox. I know there were similar concerns in elementary, and the kids have just done an amazing job. So we expect our high schoolers will step up and rise to that as well. So thank you. Dr. Harrisberry, will students be able to participate in spring sports if they remain in virtual learning?
So, Dr. Zambrino, I think this is the shortest answer of the morning. Yes. Students, yes, yes, yes. I can just say yes. They will be eligible to play sports, spring sports.
Great, thank you for that. Next question, my student has mostly PSEO classes. How are those impacted, if at all? Dr. Fearing?
Yeah, so the college or university that's hosting the PSEO classes will be in communication with your student and with you in regards to how they have their classes set up. They might be more online, they might be allowing them to come in person. I would have your student definitely check with their school counselor to make sure that the courses they need at their high school will fit into the PSEO schedule that they have. If the high school schedule is going to change a little bit, that might change some times that the student would have their high school courses versus their PSEO. But if they're mostly PSEO, then they should just be in contact with their advisor at the college or university.
Great, thank you. Senior Officer DeVette, I see a transportation question. How do we get bus cards for kids that don't have transportation?
Yeah, the go-to cards for Metro Transit will be available for you to pick up at school, at the school of enrollment, if your student is eligible for Metro Transit go-to cards. So those bus cards will be delivered, and the school, through its normal processes, will make those distributed. Typically at the beginning of the school year, there are a couple of days of a grace period that Metro Transit drivers provide our high school students if they haven't been able to pick up those bus cards in advance.
Great. All right, there will only be 6 weeks remaining in the school year by the time the students return. Is it necessary to take an entire week to prepare, considering how far behind many students already are? Dr. Fearing?
Yeah, it is a little crazy that we've almost been a whole year through this process. However, per our governor's guidance before reopening with our schools, teachers do need those transition days. So they're given 2 to 5 days. And knowing that our secondary teachers and our building administrators are going to have to do a lot of professional development and scheduling and working on to make sure that our classrooms are set up and safe for students to come in with the social distancing requirement, and all the other things that need to be done in preparation for students to returning since they have not been in the building yet. We do need our staff to have that time. But as I mentioned before, we will have up on our Minneapolis Public Schools website a college and career week for that transition week. And again, for our high school students especially, these are activities and services that we would be offering normally at this time of the year. So we really would ask that your students be engaging in those, as that is information and support that we would like all of our students to have, especially during this really critical time in the spring. So we do want to make sure that students are still engaged in learning, getting the help that they need in college and career, but our staff do need the time during that transition week to prepare so that we're ready and can move forward to the end of the school year.
Thank you. Associate Wagner, I know we both support some K-8 buildings. How will you manage the different social distancing requirements between elementary and middle grades in K-8s?
Well, February has been an exciting month as we safely welcome back to our elementary students. Schools continue to prioritize their health and safety plans. With that, we're equally excited to welcome back our secondary schools, and school leaders in our K-8s will be continue to modify and adapt their health and safety plans to meet the recommendation for their secondary schools. They're working closely with Associate Ray and our middle school leaders to ensure that their health and safety plans follow the recommendations, specifically with social distancing in the cafeteria and the classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Graff, will MPS be open to holding families to sticking with their decision? The current ability to shift back and forth makes a very complex situation even more complicated.
Yeah, I certainly want to acknowledge again just how challenging this decision is for a family to move into in-person or to remain in distance learning. You know, as noted, we have at the time of this transition, we'll have about 6 weeks of school remaining. And it is our approach that we want to make sure we accommodate families as best as possible. We know that this pandemic and the viruses, you know, can change and affect families differently. So as mentioned already by Dr. Berry, if a family is choosing to go from in-person learning to distance learning, we can certainly make that happen very quickly and have to be prepared for that in the event we get a confirmed case. But moving from distance learning to in-person is going to require at least 2 weeks for that transition, because we'll have scheduling adjustments and considerations for how we have to support the broader transition of the student and family. So we will be allowing families to move, but just know that there will be significant delays from going to distance learning to in-person learning.
Thank you. Senior Officer DeMett, I see another transportation question. How do we get bus stop service for our 11th grader? He joined Southwest High School during the shutdown.
Yes, so Metro Transit has a trip planner online that you can go into and put in your street address, and it will tell and where you're going to, so Southwest High School, and it will tell you the bus route and the stop information that would work best for your student. If you don't have access to that, please feel free to call our transportation department, and they can help you with determining that.
Great. I'll also ask you the next question. How do I find out what safety measures are being taken at the high school building?
Great question. We have provided our schools with a template to document their health and safety plans. And so as the schools fill out that template, the intention is that that is shared with our staff and our families so that they can see that school-specific plans around arrival dismissal, transitioning between classrooms, how the lunch periods will work. how the cleaning and disinfecting is happening, kind of just that whole like moving through the school day. And that would be detailed in that health and safety plan that you should be getting from your schools within the next week or so.
All right. Associate Ray, I have one here, someone writing on behalf of their 7th grader. How does the assigned seating at lunch work? Is it by person or class?
Oh, great question. I was looking forward to hearing from a student, so I'm glad I'm getting to answer this one. They strongly recommend that schools develop and maintain small cohort groups of students that do not intermix for meal times, and that 6 feet of distance be maintained between student cohort groups as much as possible. Each school will maintain a seating chart for students eating meals in the cafeteria. Students should sit with the same group of students for every meal. This chart of student mealtime seating is required to support contact tracing in the event of exposure. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking of contact tracing, Associate Cox, this next question looks like a good one for you. What are your plans for contact tracing and full transparency about the transmission or infection of people in the school building?
Yeah, so our contact tracing efforts have been in place since spring as we've had essential childcare and athletics happening. So for our students, our health services staff are all trained using the MDH decision tree for contact mapping and have consultation available from the Minneapolis Health Department. Minneapolis Health Department does do our contact tracing for all the staff in our system also. As far as transparency goes, whenever there is a positive case in a building, both families and all staff are notified through either an email or a letter with a general notification, letting them know there was a case in the building, what some resources are that they can find, and any symptoms to look for. Also, if you go onto our website, our COVID dashboard will list out the schools that had positive cases the week before. So you can find out what schools had positive cases there. Also, we have a link on that dashboard to the Minnesota Department of Health, which tracks which schools have had outbreaks, and that's 5 or more cases at a school within a 2-week period. You can also track that outbreak piece through that website. I'm happy to report that because we have such strong mitigation strategies at MPS, we have not been on that list.
Thank you. Dr. Fearing, how will band class be handled? I assume and hope that students will not be playing the band instruments in class since they cannot do so while wearing masks.
Yeah, this is a really good question since most of our 612 sites have some form of instrumental music. So in the band room or the instrumental room, students should be masked as well as the teacher at all times, or they could be utilizing a specific musical instrument mask or shield if they're playing a wind instrument. So there is very detailed guidance for our music teachers on which instruments will have a type of shield. So it might be like a flute shield or a slitted mask for playing other types of instruments. So we have ordered PPE, musical instrument PPE equipment for those teachers to be used, to allow students to use on their instruments. Similar to any of the other courses where they may have been sharing resources and materials, there should not be any sharing of instruments. The exception is with percussion, but we do have some very detailed guidance on how to disinfect percussion instruments. So again, we'd still want our students to maintain that 6 feet distance apart. And there will also be a lot more detailed guidance for our music teachers, which our parents should be able to access through their school principal or the teacher. But we will still continue with instrumental music, and we're excited to get back into the swing of things of hearing music from our students.
Thank you. Our next question, what support will be given to teachers for simultaneous teaching to ensure that both in-person and distance learners are treated equally, and to protect student safety for distance learners since teachers cannot monitor, chat, and teach in person at the same time? Senior Officer Hennis, I know you've been working on some of the technology to support that.
Yes, in the IT department, we have teachers who focus on supporting other teachers with integrating technology into the teaching and learning experience. We'll be creating training materials and modules and other resources to support MPS teachers with simultaneous teaching.
Thank you. All right, our next question. I have not seen any frequently asked question answers posted on my school's website. What is the expectation for sharing information with parents in advance of the return? Dr. Berry?
Thank you for that question. First, I want to say that there is a family Q&A available on the district website. And I also know that there have been many of the high schools that have been very creative in answering questions and outlining expectations by posting videos on their webpage. With that said, moving forward, I will work with the school administration to ensure that school-specific questions and answers are available on school's website. And also, it was also an expectations that if families did not indicate whether they wanted in-person or distant learning, that someone from the school would reach out to the family to answer questions, any questions they had.
Great. I'll ask you this next question as well. Will high school students have the same teachers as the ones they had while in distance learning?
So it is a goal of school administration and counselors to keep student schedule the same and consistent, whether in person or distant learning. But with that said, there are a lot of complexities and nuances in the scheduling that we need to take in consideration. And it might require that a student may have to continue the rest of the year with a new teacher in a particular class. But the goal, once again, is to keep student schedule consistent.
Thank you. Director Spaniel, will temperatures be taken each day when students enter the building?
No, temps will not be taken each day because the Centers for Disease Control do not recommend mass temp screening. So that is what we're following right now. And I can't stress it enough, but just one of our really important mitigation strategies is to make sure we keep students home if they're feeling ill, first of all, and then if a student would feel on direct next steps.
Thank you. All right, I've heard from both our middle and high school that kids who are using personal devices will be provided use of a school device when they're at school. However, that device does not appear that it will be only used by them. How will these devices be sanitized? And why can't these kids be assigned a device for them to use both at home and in school? Senior Officer Hennis?
Yes, students that have been using personal technology will have access to a device at school. That device could be labeled with their name and stored at school. At this point, we have plenty of devices. However, we continue to have devices that get damaged or need repairs. And there continues to be some lag in manufacturers producing new devices. So, at this point, we do have enough devices for all of our students. They'll have access to a device. If it does need to be sanitized, there will be sanitization supplies in the classrooms, and the students and families can work with their school to check out a device if needed.
Great. I know we're just about out of time. Associate Ray, will there be a buffer time to allow for kids to acclimate to new building procedures? I'm thinking of kids who are going back to buildings they've never been in before.
Thanks, Associate Zambrino. Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And there will be a buffer of 1 day at high schools for ninth graders on the first day back, April 12th. And for middle schoolers, the first day back on sixth graders on April 19th. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Well, we are out of time for questions. Superintendent Graff, did you have some closing comments?
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. And just again, to reinforce, we know how challenging these decisions are. We do not take this decision lightly to move in this direction as a district, and just appreciate all of our students, our staff, our teachers, and our administrators, as well as our families for working with us and partnering with us through these very, very challenging times. But thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to the staff for answering questions.
Yes, thank you, Superintendent Graff. Remember, if you tune in late, you can rewatch the event in its entirety. Just look for the recording starting tomorrow on the same webpage you found the link to today's program. And some other reminders that families with students in grades 6 through 12 and in Transition Plus need to register their choice for either in-person learning or to continue with distance learning by Tuesday, March 9th. If you need help completing the registration form for any reason, including language, please contact your school or call 612-668-0000. Each student needs to register separately. Any student who does not get registered will automatically be considered as doing in-person learning like we did with our elementary students. To find the registration link, just visit the MPS website and look for the registration link on the homepage. You can change your responses until registration closes on March 9th by submitting a new form. Your most recent response is the one that will be recorded. And please watch for information coming soon on how we're going to be expanding summer learning this year. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy that beautiful spring weather.